This is WDNA 88.9 FM and WDNA.org with the UM Frost Jazz Hour that comes to you every Thursday at 11 a.m. And usually we have folks coming into the Jazz Gallery listening live. And today we kind of have a full house in the studio. We have some guests. And of course we have our producer, Alberto de la Riera, and Part-2 of Steve Rucker, composer, drummer, and we're going to be listening to his compositions today. So normally what we do at the station is that for the UM Jazz Hour and for the FIU Jazz Hour, we have musicians come in and play their music live, but today we're doing kind of like a two-part segment where we actually get to listen to their compositions. All of these songs are available and out on streaming. And officially, we have Steve Rucker in the house. How are you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. Week 2. Actually, week 4, counting last summer.
This
has been fun.
Yeah, it has been.
Look forward to this.
And something that I want to share with the listeners, and for those who were here for part 1, they probably already know this, but Steve has a goal of releasing one song a month. And if you're a musician or you're an artist or you work in the creative world, that is a task.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been difficult. I've had some of my friends bail me out sort of at the last minute. But I like the idea. I like to have that deadline, and it makes me, do the work.
Yeah.
Right?
When did you start?
Almost 2.5 years ago. So, and it wasn't intentional in the beginning, but I started releasing things. I went, you know what? I'm going to try to do this every single month. And so it's been almost 2.5 months. Started during COVID, really, and that was really the impetus to get this whole writing thing started. I played drums for years and years and years, and it sort of got in the way of my composition. So, in COVID, nobody performed, nobody played. So I really spent a lot of time writing.
Yeah, I'd love to hear also about the personnel and perhaps the friends who have bailed you out.
Yeah. I've been so blessed over the years to have, some incredibly talented musicians play on my pieces. And, they really bring things to life, things that I just wouldn't have dreamed of. And I do write much of the time for specific musicians. This first one we're going to listen to today was actually kind of a re-release of something that I did right after COVID started with some old friends of mine from all over the country. So Craig Carruthers, my cover artist, named the group The Regions because we were from every corner of the country. But we released it as The Regions, and so I remixed it and added Randy Burnson on acoustic guitar to replace the MIDI guitar, the fake guitar, and re-released it under my own name. But this one is, the members of The Regions are John Gilliton, dear friend of mine that plays keyboard, did an amazing job on the production on this. Steve Watson on guitar, Dave Fernandez on sax, and Jeff Carswell. Jeff and I go way, way back. We were roommates together in college in the 70s. So,
so what they say is true. Be nice to the people you go to school with.
Absolutely. Don't burn any bridges.
Exactly.
You
Don't
just
burn.
You never know where it's going to lead. Yeah.
It's so funny you say that because, of course, when I was at Frost and I was at school, I think it's pretty typical to be in that kind of like teenager-esque era where people are giving you advice and trying to help you, and you just kind of roll your eyes. And it's been about 4 years since I've graduated, and lo and behold, it's true. The same people keep coming up, and some of the collaborations that I've been involved in are with some of my peers, just like you, that were at the Frost School with me. Yeah.
Yeah, those collaborations, those relationships last a lifetime,
Well, I'm kind of excited about that. And I'm excited to listen to the songs too. So how about we get started? This first one is entitled Marlwood which is the one that you said you had released
Right.
earlier, and then you replaced
Yeah,
some of the
it's a
guitars.
remix, a re-release, and Marlwood's my old neighborhood that I grew up in.
Yeah. This is WDNA 88.9 FM with the Frost Jazz Hour, listening to the music of Steve Rucker. Those last two tunes, well, starting at the top of the hour, you listened to Marlwood, Mirror Lake, and that last one, Black Comedy.
Yeah, so Mirror Lake was, I think, probably the first thing that I wrote that had no drums, you know. I don't think, the music needs drums all the time. And that one, so that one's just sort of an orchestral, kind of a movie score kind of piece, really heavily influenced by Ravel, one of my favorite composers, Daphnis and Chloe, and definitely some Wagner in there near the end from Tristan, but not the beginning part of Tristan that everybody talks about, but it's the sort of more toward the end. It's the Liebestod part of Tristan. And we were talking about this last week. Sometimes you'll listen to some music and you're inspired by it, and then it goes in a completely different direction where you don't really know you can't really hear the original idea. And that's kind of, where this was coming from. The last thing you heard is Black Comedy, and that one featured Tom Lippincott and Dave Fernandez. Dave's just such a incredible musician, and I think he's playing on everything we're going to listen to today. It's always kind of amazing, really, for Tom and Dave. When I write something and I send them the stems or the session or whatever, and I just can't wait to hear what I get back.
Yeah.
This one, Black Comedy, is, sometimes I think the only way that I can really sort of relate to what's going on in the world now is to think of it as a faux comedy or a black comedy, only we're living it, right? But it has kind of two parts. There's the softer side, and then you can hear my Pink Floyd sort of roots there at the end with the sort of power ballad thing.
And for Black Comedy, or just the compositions in general, when you're sending them out to the musicians, how fleshed out are the parts? For example, the guitar lines, or is it just chords? Usually, what route do you take?
It varies. It goes from exact notation. A couple of things that I've written are, this is the guitar part, this is the keyboard part, and I want it precisely like that. And then sometimes I sort of leave it open. And what happens a lot of the time is I'll have an idea, I'll have a concept, and then sometimes the musicians will change it, taking it in a little bit different direction. And the people that I have playing on my recordings, they always get it right, And so sometimes I have to be flexible. I'll get something back sometimes and I'll go, oh, wow, okay. And I'll listen to it 4 or 5 times. It's like, all right, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I like that. I think it's good to let people, have their own individual voice. I definitely do that in my ensembles at the university,
Yeah, I was just about to ask.
I just, the idea is getting the right people, when you have the right people, the music just happens.
Yeah, it I think about that a lot with, I guess, contemporary pop, and how these people go on these massive, massive tours. And as someone that toured with the Bee Gees for over 10 years, do you think that has changed in terms of, you were in a band, which is different from these bigger artists playing with different musicians in different cities. But I don't know. There's a magic to playing with the same musicians, but it just kind of gets more and more difficult, I think, nowadays, to just stick with the same kind of group.
Yeah, maybe so. I think there are a lot of different scenarios,
Right.
and there, Taylor Swift, who has an incredible show where it's pretty similar night after night, and the beauty of it is making it sound great every single night. Bee Gees were like that. You didn't deviate a whole lot. you played the show and you made it sound like it was fresh, like it's the first time you ever played it every single night. But I like the groups too that that change things up. One of my classmates from years ago, Bruce Hornsby, I think when I would see him play, it would change, from night to night. I know Pat Metheny talked about this when he was down. He wants it to be magic every single night. And so he likes that departure. However, you have to still play the music, the original intent, but you can, stretch out just a little bit. It's fun, especially maybe for musicians that's more rooted in jazz.
Yeah.
To change things up and to make it different, make it fresh every night. But there's a beauty to playing it exactly the same and making it more improvisatory. David Garibaldi, the drummer that was with Tower of Power for years, said, jazz is improvisation, funk is organization. And I think that's a great way to look at it. There's a beauty in both, playing things the same and then keeping the listener guessing,
Yeah, even thinking about someone like Frank Sinatra, people, it's jazz, but at the same time, people are expecting this show, for him to deliver the same way night after night.
Right.
And so with these compositions, I know that you're working mostly remotely. So what are the challenges or maybe gifts of working remotely in that case?
Yeah, you want it to sound like a bunch of live humans in the room together. You really want that. And I think, that's part of the production and part of, the people that you get on your recording. One of the interesting things about it is I can go back and listen to a solo and react to the solo. Sometimes I react maybe a little in too much of an obvious way sometimes, but it's almost like it's part of the composition, when you react to the solo and do it a certain way. But I'm really looking forward to playing some of these live. We have a concert with Randy Bernson that you heard a little bit of, Tom Lippincott, David Fernandez at the Savor Cinema on June 13th. And it's the first time when we rehearsed a couple of weeks ago that Mallory Square was played live. And it was like, wow, this is really cool, Yeah. Rather than me spending my time doing the production, I can actually react and hear, and we're playing things in real time. And, hey, I'm playing this, and somebody else is responding immediately in real time. It's,
Yeah, you get that immediate feedback.
Yeah.
No, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Yes, I like
it.
Yeah. So we'll take a short break here on WDNA 88.9 FM. Thanks so much for tuning in this morning. We'll be back with some more music by Steve Rucker. I'm Nicole Garcia, your host on the Frost Jazz Hour here on WDNA 88.9 FM. Once again, we have a full house in the studio today. I'm sitting with Steve Rucker, who is an American composer and musician who served as a drummer for many artists. His biggest and most well-known act was the Bee Gees. With the Bee Gees band, he appeared on The Tonight Show, Late Night with David Letterman, Oprah Winfrey, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and a Royal Variety performance for the late Queen Elizabeth. He is currently the director of contemporary drum set studies at the University of Miami Frost School of Music, and those kids are lucky. We're really glad to have you here, Steve, and we're glad that the listeners get to hear a bit of behind the scenes and the way that these compositions are coming to fruition and coming to life. So this next one we'll just play. We'll talk a little bit after. This one is called Immeasurable. You are listening to WDNA 88.9 FM. Starting at the bottom of the hour, Immeasurable by Steve Rucker, and Maradis World, also by Steve Rucker. Would you like to add anything about those tunes?
Maradis World was the last thing I released, and I played it for Greg Carruthers, and he came up with the name. It's actually MC Escher's first name, an artist that we both really like, a Dutch artist. And that one I wrote as a duo for Dave Fernandez and Tom Lippincott. And I told Tom, hey, you can play a little bit at the beginning. And it was just this incredible, sound landscape he played before the song starts. And it was supposed to be just the two of them. Tom plays an 8-string guitar, so there's plenty of bass in there. It's pretty wide tonal spectrum. And then after they recorded it, he said, well, why don't you just play some brushes? Like there was a band with Paul Motion and Bill Frisell and Joe Lovano. So I played some brushes and some cymbal swells and that kind of thing. But again, it's just amazing, when you write something and the changes, they're not simple. They can get a little crazy sometimes, and they just weave these, these solos through, and it's really, really satisfying to hear. When I get it back. Immeasurable, the one before that, I did something with Dave, and he was talking about doing something where there were no bar lines. It's like, wow, what a cool idea. So I wrote this thing for Dave, and it's really just Dave improvising over the tune with my MIDI strings. Thank you, John Gilliton, again for giving me other string libraries. And I wanted it to sound like there were no bar lines, hence the name Immeasurable, no measures. So what I did, it's to a click, but I ended up stretching the time a little bit, putting some odd bars in there to kind of make it sound like it was a little bit out of time. And then Dave and I in the middle sort of get into a sax drum, modern version, I guess, of Coltrane, Elvin, kind of like just sax and drums. And I wanted it to intentionally sound like there's some semblance of time, but the general meter is not really that distinguishable. So that was the idea there.
That's the magic of, earlier we were talking about how can you make it work? How can you make these freer songs work?
Yeah.
And I would have never guessed that you had it mapped that it was to a click. I kind of assumed maybe you played something, you sent it to him, he played on top of it, he sent it back, you fixed some stuff.
Right. Which is a great idea. That was my plan for something that I did. I think it was on the last show where I thought I was going to be sending it to Tom. He would play, he'd send it back, I'd react to him, and we'd go back and forth a few times. And it was just so good right from the get-go. It's like, okay.
Wow.
But I think I want to do that sometime. John DeVersa did that sometime during COVID. We played some piano and played trumpet with the piano, and then reacted to what he played on trumpet, and it went back and forth. So we kind of had a composition with himself, playing back and forth. I think that's a cool thing to do in the remote world,
Right,
if you're not going to play everybody live in a room together.
I've tried it before. I don't think it's for me. Because then you get kind of stuck in this landscape of, no, I need to do one more, or just, oh, let's just scrap the whole thing. It doesn't sound like we're even in the same room anymore at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed hearing your perspective and how you wrote that. So you did use a click.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all to a click, and then it went totally off the rails.
Right.
Later on.
We have time for about 2 more tunes. So let's listen to Mango Django.
Yeah.
Do you want to share anything about that one?
This is a funny one. Randy Bernson and I have been playing together like forever, since the 70s. And one of the tunes that we used to play a lot was called Mango Tango. So this is just an inside joke with Randy and I, and also with Jeff Carswell, who plays on this. We were getting together at Randy's house, and it was a nice vibe, so I figured I'd write something for the three of us. And that's just a silly title. Has nothing to do with mangoes or Django Reinhardt. But one of the interesting things about this is a little more aggressive, right? And I do have to tell you that for me, melody is number one, okay? Maybe a weird thing for a drummer to say, I don't know. But so even if I write something that's kind of aggressive and dark, I like to get some melody in there. So you'll hear a little of that at the end. But so Randy is doing his Randy Bernson thing, which I love. He's a very unique player. And there are these bits where there's melody and then there's some improvisation and melody improvisation. And one of them, he just played the craziest thing. And he said, maybe you should get Dave to play this thing that I did in unison. So I'm listening back and Dave listens. It's like, oh man, that's really out there. So I transcribed it, gave it to Dave. Dave played it. And then I took Dave's part and I moved it up a fourth and then the whole thing up a major second, so that now Randy's original part is on the bottom, and it's sort of a sus2 voicing that it's moving through. So what was supposed to be an improvised thing is now sort of a solo section, right? But
compositional.
It's they played it originally in real time, but it's sort of manipulated,
Ooh, can't wait to listen.
Yeah, in the production.
So that's in Mango Django.
That's Mango Django.
Okay, let's listen to it.
Right. So yeah, Mango Django. No Django Reinhardt there. So this last thing is called taillights. I've spent a lot of time on the Palmetto Expressway. I moved down in the 70s where they were.
I have to laugh.
I know, right? And they were working on the Palmetto Expressway then. They're still working on it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time looking at taillights, and I took a picture of some taillights and I sent it to my buddy Craig, who does the artwork, and he, did his art on that. But this is called taillights.
Thanks so much, Steve, for being with us in the studio and listening to your music. I just want to say one more thing to the WDNE listeners. Steve is playing a show of his original music at Savor Cinema on June 13th. Where can we find more information on that?
You can either go look up Randy Burnson on socials. He's posted it, or look for Savor Cinema, SAVOR Cinema.
All right.
And check it out.
We'll see you there. All right, this is Taillights, Steve Rucker.